Myths are meant to be debunked. So in this video, let's figure out if it's a good idea to take an aspirin a day if you have a heart problem. Coming right up. So hey y'all, A-Man here, and you're watching Heart Limits, channel that talks about everything heart related. Now, whenever we think of aspirin, normally the first thing that comes into our minds is that it's a painkiller. Normally we use it whenever we have some headaches, migraines, we have some form of toothache, we have this, I guess it doesn't apply for every gender, you have these cramps whenever you're on your period. And also there are times when people, have fever or have the flu. But the thing is, whenever we get into heart disease and all of this, actually aspirin is also prescribed by a doctor whenever you are at of a high risk of a heart attack, because it actually serves as a way that it prevents you from having blood clots. And as we know, a heart attack usually occurs whenever there is some form of partial or complete blockage, and this is mainly due to a blood clot. So by taking aspirin a day, there was this myth that kind of built up that it is actually a good thing to take it every day. Now, it's true, it does work, but there is a problem. And that problem is, given that you are kind of committing your body to not have the ability to have a blood clot, what happens whenever there is this bleeding in your stomach or in your brain? In those instances, it becomes really, really complicated. So let's say there's a bleeding in your stomach. So what will happen? Well, of course, there's this protective layer in your stomach, and the problem is because that protective layer gets affected and the acid will affect your stomach, you can actually start, spitting out blood and all of this, and it could actually become quite serious. Sometimes it could even lead to a form of an imminent death. And if ever there is some bleeding in your brain, when that happens is, of course, your brain cells will die and the brain cells don't really recover. So I guess you can kind of say you get dumber and dumber. No, but to be serious, you can actually also die because of this. You can even have a stroke because of that bleeding which is in your brain. So in general, the aspirin therapy, which is basically taking an aspirin a day, is something that works but needs to be taken with certain precautions. So first of all, the most basic is make sure that you are not allergic to aspirin. That's going to be a really sad thing. The doctor prescribes it to you, you don't inform the doctor that you're actually allergic to it, and you suddenly take it and then you just die because you're allergic to it and not even because of the heart problem. So yeah, that's something else, but that's pretty sad, alright? Also, if you have already a disorder with, let's say for instance, blood clotting disorders. So with that alone, plus the addition of the aspirin, makes things more and more complicated. And usually a doctor would only prescribe this aspirin therapy whenever you fall into certain categories. One of which is, let's say you are at a very, very high risk of having a heart attack. A doctor would prescribe that, right? Second, let's say you just had a heart attack and there's a possibility that you're gonna have another one. So of course the doctor is going to prescribe that as well. Third, so let's say you are diabetic and there is another factor which adds up to you being diabetic. So let's say for instance, you're diabetic plus you are either of the following. Let's say you have hypertension, or you have high blood pressure, or let's say you are a male at the age of 50 up, or if you are a female at the age of 60 and up. These types of scenarios when combined with diabetes makes it actually of a higher risk. So a doctor would prescribe it also to you in these scenarios. Now, thing is, if we break it down, is this actually a myth or is it reality? Truth is, it's actually a real thing and it is a reality. What's only important is that you take precaution whenever, you get into this aspirin therapy. So, once again, Amen here. You're watching Heart Limits. So once again, see ya.